Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh is a research professor of Middle East and Central Asian politics at Deakin University and joins me now. Good afternoon to you.
Kirsten.
Iran has now reacted to the US killing of its Iranian general. What is your assessment of where things stand?
Well, that was a brazen act for the United States to target and kill a serving commander of a sovereign state. So it was always going to be taken. It was obvious that Iran was going to retaliate. I think most people were hoping that Iran would retaliate more softly rather than shooting missiles, firing missiles at Iraqi bases. But I think the level of hurt in Iran and the level of the damage to Iranian standing and image was so great that Iran felt compelled to respond and retaliate like that. I am really hoping that cooler minds, cooler heads prevail and President Trump steps away from the edge, because he has threatened, as we heard, to retaliate even harder and target Iranian sites. The ball is in his court. I'm hoping that he would think twice about what that could do to the region and what that would mean for U.S. interests in the region, because that would really send us down a full-blown conflict.
Some of the details of the Iranian attacks bear repeating. They took place at 1:20 a.m. local time in Iraq. That was the same time that the US targeted the Iranian general Soleimani. Also, these attacks are said to have been launched from Kerman in Iran, which is where the Iranian general has been buried in the past few hours or so. What notes do you think we should be taking of the symbolism of these details?
Well, Iran is big on symbolism, it's clearly trying to make a connection and to say that this is retaliation against what the U.S. has done. So that, yes, symbolism is there, but that's not going to change anything in the fact that Iran has now retaliated severely and targeted Iraqi bases hosting U.S. troops. And it's amazing. What's really amazing is that no U.S. troops, that there have been no casualties. So I would like to know how were they really bad really bad at shooting, or was there a target problem? Was it deliberate maybe? Did Iran deliberately fire near and not at the bases? So that's to be found out.
Is Iran providing the United States and specifically its President Donald Trump a way out of this limited conflict?
Well, the statement from Foreign Minister Javad Zarif seems to suggest that, because Iran does not really want to enter into a full-blown conflict. It would be devastating for Iran. Everybody knows that Iran doesn't really have the military firepower to withstand a U.S. attack. Iran's economy is in shambles following years of sanctions. It cannot support and sustain war efforts. So Iran is hoping that this would be the end of it. It remains to be seen if President Trump sees it that way.
Talk to me about the significance of Iran's decision to say that it indeed has torn up that agreement that the West worked so long to obtain in past years, that agreement limiting its nuclear weapons development.
Well, President Donald Trump's decision to walk away from the nuclear deal in 2018 was again a blow. The deal was supposed to contain Iran's nuclear program. It was supposed to prevent Iran from developing the know-how to develop a nuclear weapon. When the U.S. withdrew from it, Iran said, well, we hope that the Europeans will step in and find a solution to go around and address the new sanctions that Trump imposed on Iran. Europeans tried, but they failed. So Iran has been gradually stepping away from the nuclear deal, and with every step reminding Europe that it is still open Iran is still open to go back to the negotiation table and save the deal. Now, with the killing of Soleimani, Iran doesn't really see much hope in trying to find a negotiated deal for the nuclear deal, and has walked away from the deal.
The wider region, of course, is extremely complicated. Can you talk to us for a moment about how the regional powers are responding to the past week's developments?
Well, everyone is very nervous, clearly, but we have to also keep in mind that Israel and Saudi Arabia have been lobbying United States to take on Iran. Israel and Saudi Arabia have had meetings together, have met US officials, have singled Iran as the greatest threat to regional security. So I would suspect, and I haven't seen more than that, but I would suspect that Israel and Saudi Arabia would be quietly optimistic that President Trump would take the war back to Iran and really escalate, because Iran is really seen as a major challenge and a major rival for Saudi influence in the region, and obviously Israel.
Aside from Donald Trump's tweet earlier in the week where he did say that the US would retaliate if US interests were targeted by Iran, have you seen any other evidence that suggests that the United States is ready for an absolute conventional war?
I don't think Donald Trump wants to go to war. He has said it. The American public opinion has said it. Nobody wants the US to start a whole new war in the Middle East. In fact, Donald Trump came to office with the promise of extracting US troops from the region. Donald Trump was going to take US troops out of Iraq just before this incident of killing Soleimani. So the whole thing is quite ironic. On the one hand, Donald Trump wants to bring the US out of Iraq. Next we know that the Iraqi parliament is issuing a resolution for US withdrawal, and the US is now resisting it and sending in 3,000 more troops into Iraq. So is Donald Trump ready to go to war? I don't think so. But I also don't think Donald Trump thinks through the consequences of his actions. A lot of these things seem to just happen on the fly. Killing Qasem Soleimani, a serving commander of a sovereign state, you can imagine, it's easy to imagine that Iran would retaliate. Why would he go ahead and do that?
These attacks took place in Iraq. What do you think the direct consequences will be in that country?
For Iraq, the consequences are going to be quite dire, because Iraq is now turning into a theater of proxy conflict, even a direct conflict between Iran and the United States. And that also filters through and has implications for local rivalries, local animosities, sectarian tensions within Iraq. It is going to be devastating for Iraq as well.
All right, Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh, thank you so much for speaking to ABC News this afternoon.
Thank you, Kirsten.